A new national lockdown in France will start on Friday and last until at least the end of November. Announcing the measures, President Macron said people would only be allowed to leave home for essential work and shopping, exercise or emergencies. Germany's Chancellor Merkel has announced tough nationwide coronavirus measures, including shutting bars, restaurants and much of the leisure sector for the whole of next month. She said the restrictions were needed to stop the exponential spread of the disease. Election campaigning has intensified with fewer than 6 days to go before the US election. Joe Biden has been in Delaware while Donald Trump is in Nevada. More than 70 million people have already cast their votes. Turkey has threatened France with legal and diplomatic action after a French magazine published cartoons mocking President Erdogan. France said it will not be intimidated.
New U.S. coronavirus cases climbed back above 70,000 on Tuesday, the second daily increase in a row, according to Johns Hopkins University. The potential for more stringent restrictions and lower economic activity caused U.S. stocks to fall sharply. By midday, the major U.S. indexes were each down more than 2.5%. We report exclusively that luxury jeweler Tiffany is nearing an agreement to lower the price of its purchase by French conglomerate LVMH. If it's approved, the new deal would end a bitter dispute between the companies. In September, LVMH, which owns the luxury brands Louis Vuitton and Dior, said Tiffany's business had been so deeply damaged by the pandemic that their earlier takeover agreement was invalidated. And Boeing says it plans to shed another 7,000 jobs by the end of next year as it reviews its jet production levels. The aerospace giant is dealing with a mounting toll on the global airline industry from a fresh global surge in coronavirus cases. Boeing reported a third-quarter loss of $466 million this morning, though it expects its troubled 737 MAX jet to return to service as soon as next month.
Lebanon and Israel launch a second in a series of sea border talks. The two countries have no diplomatic ties. Nigerian officials say at least 13 states have set up judicial panels to investigate reports of abuse by police and the shooting of protesters. The Indian city of Delhi had harmful air quality on Wednesday, with no improvement expected until next month. And the funeral for South Korean businessman Lee Gon-hee was held Wednesday. Lee helped build Samsung into one of the world's most valuable companies.
We start this hour here in Tokyo, where Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide took part in his first diet debate since assuming office last month. Topping the agenda were the coronavirus, the upcoming U.S. election, and Suga's stated goal of making Japan carbon neutral by 2050. The leader of the largest opposition party started off Wednesday's debate.
We welcome your pledge to realize a carbon-free society by 2050. But to achieve that goal, Japan must not become more dependent on nuclear power.
Suga says the government is exploring renewable energy options, but did not rule out nuclear power.
We will try and introduce thorough energy-saving and renewable energy measures to reduce Japan's dependence on nuclear power as much as possible. Achieving a carbon-neutral society by 2050 is not an easy task.
Suga announced the goal on Monday, but has not yet provided concrete policy measures on how it will be achieved. During the debate, Suga also touched on revitalizing the economy, including the struggling tourism industry.
Taking into account the coronavirus pandemic at home and abroad, we plan to gradually resume international travel while balancing it with preventative measures.
Suga was also asked about the upcoming U.S. presidential election.
Regardless of the results, the Japan-U.S. alliance is the cornerstone of our diplomacy. We will further deepen bilateral ties in a wide range of fields, including regional situations like North Korea.
He also expressed determination to bolster ties with other nations and carry out what he describes as active diplomacy. North Korea has criticized Prime Minister Suga for his recent ritual offering to a Tokyo shrine that honors Japan's war dead. The Korean Central News Agency published a commentary on Wednesday that noted that Suga sent a potted plant to Yasukuni Shrine earlier this month. Those remembered include leaders convicted of war crimes after World War II. The state-run media says Suga revealed his far-right nature as soon as he took power. It says such moves will only evoke more bitter denunciation and repugnance from the international community. It also says the Korean nation and the world as a whole will never forget Japan's past crimes and will force it to pay for them. South Korea has become the third major Asian economy to set a target to go carbon neutral. President Moon Jae-in says they'll aim to hit net zero emissions by 2050. Moon revealed the plan in a budget speech Wednesday to the National Assembly.
We will act aggressively to deal with climate change, along with the international community, with a goal of zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050.
Moon's announcement follows similar pledges by Japan and China. He said the shift would create new industries and new jobs. He promised to spend more than $7 billion in the next fiscal year promoting eco-friendly infrastructure and electric vehicles. Japan confirmed more than 700 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday. It marks a slight increase in the infection rate and is prompting concerns that certain regions may not have enough hospital beds to treat patients. A panel of experts advising the health ministry says the rise is likely due to cluster infections and an increase in people traveling to and from Greater Tokyo, where infection rates have remained steady in recent weeks. The chairman of the panel warned that areas dealing with clusters for the first time could easily find themselves short of hospital beds. Prefectural medical systems that could face major problems include Aomori, Fukushima, Okinawa, and Tokyo. As of last Tuesday, data shows they exceeded a government benchmark for hospital bed availability. The panel chairman says it's important to secure hotel rooms and other facilities where people who have mild or no symptoms can stay. The total number of cases across Japan now stands at over 99,000. More than 1,700 people have died. The International Paralympic Committee has announced plans to send a team of up to 6 refugee athletes to next year's Paralympics in Tokyo. A refugee team took part for the first time in the 2016 Paralympics in Rio de Janeiro. It consisted of 2 athletes from Syria and Iran. The 2020 Tokyo Games were postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. The IPC says it'll select team members from a pool of refugee athletes who meet the eligibility criteria for the Games. The team will be led by Ileana Rodriguez, a refugee from Cuba who represented the United States at the 2012 London Paralympics. She says she hopes the team will provide a platform to raise awareness of the plight faced by all refugees. With the U.S. election now just a week away, both camps are going on the offensive, focusing on states where a win could give them another path to the presidency. President Donald Trump was in Michigan, a Rust Belt state where he grabbed a surprise victory 4 years ago.
It's a choice between a Trump boom or a Biden lockdown, but you're already locked down.
Meanwhile, Democratic candidate Joe Biden is trying to flip Georgia, which hasn't been won by a Democrat since 1992.
Has the heart of this nation turned to stone? I don't think so. I refuse to believe it. I know this country. I know our people. And I know we can unite and heal this nation.
The pandemic is prompting a record number of early votes. More than 69 million people had already cast a ballot as of Tuesday, according to the U.S. Elections Project.
Whatever's going to happen on actual election day, November 3rd, whether there will be any disruptions or anything that would cause us to have any problems to vote. So I wanted to do it as soon as possible, and that way I don't have to worry about it.
Officials are expecting an unprecedented turnout. The number of advance votes has now topped half of all ballots cast in the election 4 years ago. The administration of U.S. President Trump signed a peace deal with the Taliban in February, but the militants' violence against the Afghan government has only expanded, leaving more civilians dead and injured. We take a look at the situation in an area under Taliban control. NHK World's Yamaka Michitaka reports.
The Taliban's presence is strong here in the northern province of Baghlan. A truck driver shows receipts from payments he made to the Taliban. He says they set up road tolls and demand drivers pay about $50 to pass.
If I don't pay the toll, they don't give me permission to use the road.
This farmer says he was recruited by the Taliban in September. He earns 5 times more than he used to. Struggling from the pandemic and other problems, he says he needed to support his family.
The coronavirus and drought made life difficult, so I had no choice but to join the Taliban.
This man says he's a member of a so-called Red Unit, Taliban Special Forces.
This is Red Unit. Over here we have a machine gun.
His team launches night raids on government and military checkpoints and bases. They number between 10 and 15 fighters, and he says there are up to 30 units in the province. This Taliban video shows Red Unit fighters in training. The instructors come from Pakistan and other foreign countries. The man says they taught him from scratch how to fight and shoot.
We can quickly destroy targets without casualties.
He says the Taliban are buying state-of-the-art weapons from overseas and stepping up attacks on the government.
Yamaka Michitaka has more on how the result of the U.S. presidential election could influence peace in Afghanistan.
President Trump has indicated that he will further reduce troops in Afghanistan in the coming months. Little progress has been made on the development of Afghan security forces, but the reduction of U.S. troops will continue no matter who wins the election. The peace agreement between the U.S. and the Taliban includes a complete withdrawal of troops within a 14-month time frame after concluding the pact. In the agreement, the Taliban promised that they will cut ties with Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups. But some media report that the group still has some connections with Al-Qaeda behind the scenes. So, if the Taliban break this promise, then the U.S. may review its strategy. After the election, the U.S. president will decide whether the Taliban have kept that promise or not. But I can sense that many people in Kabul, at least, expect U.S. troops to stay longer for the sake of security and safety.